Hello there, everyone. Thank you for joining with me today in another new episode of Echoes of History. I'm your host, Noah Hernandez, and today we're going to talk about something deep and important, something that made a huge difference for Mexican American students in 1960s and still inspires people today. We're going to talk about the East LA Walkouts, so let's travel back into time to the late 1960s. In 1968, students in East Los Angeles were mad, disappointed, or so-called fed up with their schools. They were mainly Mexican American, or as people call them, Chicano, and their schools were failing them. I'm talking about schools like Garfield, Roosevelt, Lincoln, and Wilson. These schools were overcrowded and old. Underfunded classrooms were packed with too many students, and the textbooks were falling apart. Things were so bad that sometimes students would have to share books, or the books didn't even have the right information in them. But what was even worse was how they were treated. Many of their teachers didn't think the students were capable of anything. Some teachers didn't even believe that Mexican American students could succeed in life because of their race. They didn't think that they had a future in college or anything beyond working in factories or doing labor jobs. What was even more unfair was how these students were treated. They were not able to speak Spanish. Imagine being punished for speaking your own language. If a student was caught speaking Spanish in school, they would be hit with a wooden paddle, a punishment that was sadly allowed back then, and the schools were even strict about students not connecting to their own culture or history. It was like they were being told their culture didn't matter, and that they didn't matter either. Imagine not having a chance to learn about your own culture in their textbooks. They were taught about history, but not history that connected them to their Mexican American roots. The school system didn't make any effort in teaching them that. The teachers also didn't put any effort into including or celebrating their heritage, and that made them feel really disconnected from their own identity. The schools were treating them like they were invisible, like they didn't belong where they were going. They wanted to let the students continue to do these walkouts, so the students decided to do something about it. But here's the thing, they didn't just protest their own, they were inspiring people, and they were inspired by something really important. Sal Castro was one of the people who had cared about the students and the teachers who saw their potential. Sal Castro wasn't like other teachers who didn't believe in their students. He thought the students had a right to demand a better education, and he wasn't alone in there, where other teacher mentors and leaders were supportive, and the students like Aranto Camacho and Mario Garcia. These teachers helped guide the students and give them courage to stand up for what they deserved. But Sal Castro didn't just believe in the students. He helped them organize and encourage them to see that they had a voice too. They didn't have to stay quiet and accept the way things were. They could make their voices heard. So the students started meeting in secret. They gathered in churches, in living rooms, and in quiet places they could find to talk about what they needed to change. These meetings were about more than just complaining. It was more about planning how to make action and get their voices heard. The students decided to stand. On March 1st, 1968, the first group of students walked out of Wilson High School, and they walked out of their classes and didn't return. They were tired of being treated unfairly, and they wanted the world to know, but they didn't stop there. The other students in the other schools in East LA saw that Wilson High School did and decided to join the walkout. It spread quickly to Garfield High School, Roosevelt High School, and Lincoln High School. According to Britannica, by March 6, 1968, over 15,000 students had walked out of school in East LA, Los Angeles. That number is huge. These students weren't just skipping class, they were making a statement. They were saying, "We're not going to stay quiet anymore. We deserve better." But their protest wasn't about coincidences or the authorities. It was about making a change. And the authorities didn't like what was happening, and they tried to stop it. 13 students and teachers were arrested for disturbing the peace. These people became known as the 13. But even though they were arrested, they didn't give up. In fact, it only made the movement stronger. The walkouts didn't just happen for one day and then stop. More and more schools joined the movement, and the fight for better education spread. It wasn't just about getting better classrooms or newer books, it was about demanding respect. It was about Mexican American students saying we matter, we deserve to be treated fairly. And this was the first time in U.S. history that so many students stood up and protested for what was right in such a big way. They showed young people that they could make a change too and have their voices heard. This moment became a turning point in history. The East LA walkouts weren't just about education, they helped people serve and spark their own Chicano civil rights. This Chicano civil rights movement fought for better schools, fair treatment at work. It was all about being treated equal. The walkouts lit the spark that led to bigger changes in the country. The walkouts also showed that the world's something else. When young people stand together, they can do powerful things. The students in East LA weren't just making noises, they were making history. And when they stood up for themselves, they also stood up for their community, their families, and everyone who had been told that they didn't matter. People like Sal Castro, Loop, and other activists who supported the students and essentials in keeping the movement going. And of course, the students who walked out became leaders in their own right way. They didn't just fight for their own education, they fought for the future of all Mexican students. These students were so brave, they were teenagers just like me, but they were also thinking about how to make the world a better place. Even though it wasn't easy enough, they had faced the punishment and danger. They didn't give up, they kept going, and their actions changed everything. The walkouts showed young people can be leaders too, just like me and my other fellow classmates. They did not need to wait until they're adults to speak up and make a difference. This is why the East LA walkout still matters today. They remind us that everyone, no matter how old, can fight for what's right. So the next time someone says you're too young to make a difference, just think about those students in the East LA. They were teens who showed the world they had power to change history. They provide that the power of youth is real and it cannot be ignored. And that is why this story is so important. It is more than just the walkouts. It was how young people can change the world. It was how they can stand together, speak together, and refuse to stay silent. There was this was the start of something big. This was the Chicano Civil Rights Movement, and it was illustrated with a big group of teenagers who weren't just going to let them be told that they didn't matter or they had nothing in life. Thank you so much for listening to Echoes of East LA. I am Noah, and I want you to remember you're never too young to make a difference. Whether it is your school, community, or even the world, you can make a change just like the students of East LA. I'm Noah, your host. Thank you.